So when I found out I was pregnant, I came to that moment where I realized I didn't know much about pregnancy. Like I knew known a little bit because of friends who had had children, but I didn't feel like I knew enough. And so, in my family, in terms of my nuclear family, my biological mother and grandmothers were no longer with us. They had passed. So I couldn't ask them what they experienced to maybe like get an idea of what I might experience from a biological standpoint or what might run in our family. I had no biological sisters to speak to. So I really looked to my friends, my coworkers, and just watching a lot of YouTube to learn what to expect. So some information I was able to gather beforehand, and some I just really didn't know until after the fact. I didn't grow up with younger children. I was the youngest child, so this was all very new to me, right? I didn't change anybody's diaper growing up. So I realized although there was some information that others take for granted, they thought it was very basic, I had no clue about. So I was, again, clueless. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 things I wish I knew before becoming a new mom and how exactly to navigate it. Hey y'all, my name is Nikki and this is The Aziza. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. So, 10 things I wish I knew before becoming a new mom. Number 1, pregnancy symptoms will vary for everyone. Now, granted, full disclosure, people had mentioned this before, but I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So I didn't know what were some common symptoms and were less common or just, things that I hadn't encountered. So it's true. Yes, symptoms will vary for everyone. And so even if you have a mother or grandmother that can share what they went through, it doesn't mean you will go through the same thing as well, right? So for me, I didn't have some of the common symptoms that I'd heard about. Like, I didn't have nausea. I didn't have inflated feet. My feet didn't swell. My main symptoms were the ones that were common. I had backaches the second and third trimester. I had an extreme change in hair texture. So the way everyone explained it in the past was they would say, oh, my hair became very voluminous, became really thick. But for me, it changed my hair texture. I couldn't straight iron my hair to save my life. It literally was impossible. I would damn near burn my hair to try to straight iron it, and it wouldn't straighten. And that has never been an issue for my hair texture. Although I have different hair textures on my head, like in different parts, this was a little bit more extreme in terms of the variation between each of them. So I can never get a uniform look on my head. All my hair was just so drastically different in different parts, especially in the front. So that's not something I heard from other people. Although, they had mentioned that the hair situation changed, but for me, it was a little different. Another thing was, I encountered hair loss, which I know can happen for mothers a few months after postpartum. Your body's adjusting, your hormones are adjusting. And so all that hair that you grew, tremendously during pregnancy starts to come out, right? And for me, it came out in clumps. It was a little mind-boggling. I had been prepped by my friends saying, hey, I had some hair loss. So I knew that could be a possibility. But, when it happens, you're like, oh, it's happening. Some other things that I had not really heard from other mothers about. For me, my blood pressure tends to run on the lower end. And so when I was pregnant, it was one point where my blood pressure got so low, the doctor was a little worried. I had went in for a general check-in, and they checked my blood pressure, and it was like really, really low. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I feel okay. I mean, I'm always tired, but I feel relatively okay." So for me, that was a symptom that I encountered that I normally don't hear about. The other thing is I had back-to-back yeast infections. Like for my first and second trimester, I always had a yeast infection. I couldn't, it was like I never had a day off from having a yeast infection. And my doctor would keep giving me medicines for the yeast infection, but it would come back. It would come back. It would come back. And I just was never comfortable. So that was something that I never heard women talking about. Like that could be an issue. Like I heard that yeast infections could be an issue, but not like a whole 2 trimesters. That was a wild time. The other thing is, I knew that I had a fibroid on my left-hand side. However, the pain that I felt in my second trimester, I think it was like late first trimester, early second trimester, it was so painful. I had to call out from work one day. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't get up and walk. And I was so scared. And everything ended up being fine. I had the doctor check it out. Like it was fine. And then the last thing that I encountered, which I couldn't even find this online. Everyone told me like, "Oh my goodness, your hormones are going to be racing. You're going to want to engage in romantic activities all the time." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, cool. Fine." Not for me. I had such extreme vaginal dryness. It was almost a little scary. I had encountered anyone that encountered that at all. It was always the opposite. So for me, the vaginal dryness, like it was sometimes almost a little painful that it was so dry. And that was something that happened to me. So, again, these are just examples of like how somebody's body could be completely different and experience, and it could vary from pregnancy to pregnancy. So I may have these symptoms, for my first child, but maybe later on, if I have another child, it might be different symptoms that I encounter. And so I say that all to say, there's some examples. If you encountered some of those less common symptoms, I just want you to know you're not alone. So 2, belly changes. So in your third trimester, your body is going to stretch more than you ever thought it could possibly stretch. So this could or could not apply to everyone, right? So to everybody. So that's going back to point number 1, right? Everybody's symptoms are different. But for me, I thought I was going to give birth early. I think everybody thought I was going to give birth early. And it didn't happen. I made it to full term, a full 40 weeks. So when I got to that point, I thought my body, I was like, all right, I'm going to pop. I'm going to pop any day. And my body stretched. So you don't really know how much your body will stretch until it actually happens. And you're just like, oh, it can't go anymore. Oh, yes, my love, it can. All right. 3, prep your existing belongings before the third trimester. Try to get as much as you can, right, before your third trimester. So you may not be high risk or anything like that. And you're like, oh, the doctor doesn't expect anything. They're aiming for me to be full term. They're not expecting anything's going to happen. Of course, you can't predict the future, right? But in the third trimester, my love, you will be exhausted. So the things that you thought were simple, like, oh, I'll just do that, you might experience fatigue, right? And movement will look different for everyone, right? And even if you don't have some of these symptoms, at least you'll be prepared early. Like, that's the worst that could happen, right? Everything is ready. So for instance, figure out what do you need exactly. Figure out those things beforehand. And then whatever you don't have that you need, put it on the baby shower registry. As the items come in, you'll want to make sure that everything is situated and already in place. So that's one less thing to happen in the event you give birth. It may also determine what you do and do not need, right? So if you notice that you got, people will get a lot of presents for baby showers and they don't unwrap it until the baby comes, right? And so you have all these things that you ended up getting, you maybe bought or you didn't think you had because you hadn't prepped in advance. I know I have one friend who mentioned that her sister went into labor the day before her baby shower, right? So I'm sure she didn't have everything ready by then, right? So things happen and you just want to be prepared. The other thing is finances. You want to save as much as you can. So unexpected costs are guaranteed to pop up during pregnancy and after the baby arrives. I worked a second job Ubering for my first trimester and half of my second trimester. That's not for everybody, but for me, that's what I did. After that, I didn't really have the energy after the first half of the second trimester. I couldn't hold my bladder to save my life. It was absolutely impossible. So at some point I realized Ubering, I just couldn't do it and I just had to be okay with that. So something to be mindful. So, you want to put away some money, pay off any bills that you have just to reduce any expenses and increase savings. You want to cut any unnecessary items out of your budget, especially if you can't get another job, right? So maybe that's not possible. Maybe you can't really boost the amount of additional income coming in, but what you can do is reduce expenses going out. So all things to remember when thinking about how to get things done before your third trimester. You also want to gather all available resources. So that varies. So that can include a number of things. You want to learn as much as you can with the resources you have about pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. So people ask, I would recommend that you ask every mom who has given birth any tips they can share. If the information's overload for you at some point, take what applies and throw out whatever doesn't. You also want to take as many classes as you are provided, especially if they're free. A lot of hospitals will offer free classes and webinars. So, ask your doctor and midwife if they can share them. For instance, I took a breastfeeding class and I remember it was like partially while I was at work. And so I realized I had missed half of it. So I caught the second half of it. But I suspect there was some information that I missed during that time that would have been very beneficial. Because let me tell y'all, this might sound crazy, but remember what I said? I really didn't know what I didn't know. So when I gave birth and I was in a hospital, the nurses were telling me, okay, so when you go home, you're going to feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours. And I'm like, okay. They're like, even during the night. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What if the baby is sleeping very well? I still have to feed the baby? And they're like, yes, you have to wake the baby up every 2 to 3 hours and feed the baby. And I was like, wait, what? I had no clue. So that was something that, surprised me. And I remember mentioning it to a coworker and she's like, well, I gave birth like 35 years ago. They never said that before. I was like, she said, I gave birth to two kids and that was never a thing back in the day. So I don't know if this is a new age thing, but they did tell me feed baby every 2 to 3 hours. And that means you have to wake up and then you have to feed the baby, however you feed the baby. And so something to know in case you didn't know that, wanted to share that tidbit. All right. Fifth thing, babies are naturally minimalist. Even if you don't subscribe to the whole minimalist train, your baby is naturally inclined to want the simple things. Don't add any unnecessary stress in getting all the things done. You will get everything you need. Trust and believe. So all the baby needs is you, shelter, and food, which is milk. And so thanks to technology, there are options out there, right? So there's a breastfeeding directly, right? And then there's pumping. So you can do pumping and having the baby drink from a bottle. There's formulas. It's different type of formulas. There's cow-based formula. There is goat milk-based formula. There is corn syrup-based formula. So there's a number of options. And you don't need a whole bunch of stuff like toys and all the gadgets and all those things. The baby's fine. The baby just needs you. And then the other thing is really lean into the mothers and mother figures around you, right? And just because someone hasn't given birth to a child before, if they've been a motherly figure, right, and if they've taken care of a newborn or helped support another mother in being taking care of their newborn, lean on them for information. They might have little tidbits you never even thought about, right? I tried to ask people as many questions as I possibly could and write everything down so I'd be somewhat prepared for when the time came. All right, number 6. The first few weeks of postpartum will be challenging. And I know you're saying, well, duh. Okay, duh, right? But it's an understatement. And I don't know how much I can stress this. It's really, you don't expect how hard it's going to be. Like, remember that whole every 2 to 3 hours thing? I used to get frustrated because everyone would say, all right, you got to feed them every 2 to 3 hours. Okay. But you're supposed to sleep when they sleep. Okay. And you're also supposed to make sure you pump a certain amount of times during the day. I'm like, okay, so when am I supposed to do this? Because when baby would sleep, I was trying to pump, right? And there was no time for me to sleep. So my body was all over the place. And it was tough, yo. I had some moments where I cried. I was struggling, and this is common. I don't want you to feel like you're alone if this is something you encounter. This may not be something you do, but if you do, I just want you to know that this is very, very, very common. And it's funny. I don't know if it's like some biological reason, but it's almost like mothers, like once you bring it up, they're like, oh yeah, yes, that happened. But beforehand, it's almost like they forget or put it in their subconscious, like that they don't mention it to you, like, hey, it's gonna be really, really tough, and these are the things that you need to do. There's some things that were missed. People didn't share with me, so I'm sharing that with you. Just have comfort in knowing that there are many mothers that have experienced what you're going through over the millennia. You will get through it and you will conquer those humps, promise. I recommend watching mindless entertainment, nothing too heavy. I appreciated Mom Talk and Instagram, watching parents create skits on the hardships of navigating a newborn. That really helps me. I think for the first several weeks, I didn't even stop or pause to say, I need to laugh. And then I think it was about 2.5 months that I was like, all right, let me go on social media, because I'm really not on social media normally, just YouTube. And I counted all these videos with parents making jokes about being, navigating, having a newborn. And I laughed, I cried, it's what I needed. So I recommend do that from the beginning. Just find ways to laugh, whether it's a movie, a show, whatever you find entertaining, find a way to laugh. Number 7, set up baby stations. Create areas throughout your home where you can tend to baby. So like having a bottle prepping table. We had that in our bedroom, close to our son's crib, or bassinet, I should say. So if we had to prep a bottle, we could do it right then and there, especially in the middle of the night. You're exhausted. There have been plenty of times where I spilled milk on the ground, on the table, because I was so tired. I just was all over the place. The other thing is, think about where you want to breastfeed. Have a comfortable sitting area for that, because, sometimes it can be challenging for new mothers. It was for me, right? And so having somewhere where you're comfortable is important in breastfeeding. Also, identifying the baby changing area, things like that. We live in a multi-level home, so it was even more crucial. So everything that was on the first level was on the second level. So a bottle prepping area, somewhere for me to breastfeed. Also having a bassinet on the first floor and the second floor. Like everything that was on one floor was on the other floor, because when you're tired and you're going through postpartum healing, you don't have the energy to go up and down. Sometimes it could be up, down the stairs. Sometimes it can be painful to do that. So just make your life as easy as possible. The other thing is, think of like methods that are going to be really helpful. So if you have to go out, one of my friends actually came up with this idea. where she actually gave us a thermal bottle. So it essentially keeps the milk in the bottle warm or cold. And so she gave that to me. And so what she ended up doing was she would have that when she had outings, so that the whatever she had, like the milk or whatever, was kept cool or hot for long extended periods, right? Not just a regular baby bottle. The other thing was we had a bottle warmer. However, if you don't have a bottle warmer, this is another thing my friend did. She actually would heat up water at night, right? Because remember, we got to feed baby every 2 to 3 hours. She would heat up the bottle. She would heat up the milk, right? In advance, specifically for formula. So remember, you have to feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours, right? And so for my friend, when she was giving the baby formula, what she would do is she would heat up the water in advance and then put it in this like thermal baby bottle. And she would have that throughout the night. So when she had to wake up and feed the baby, or if the baby woke her up, she could just pour the formula in there and then shake it up and then give it to the baby, not having to worry about, okay, now I got to go warm up the bottle. I got to do this. I got to do that. She had multiple bottles that way, and that really helped. We ended up having a bottle warmer, so we didn't really need that. However, I could see how it's really, really helpful. We absolutely use that same baby thermal bottle for when we go out. That's been an absolute lifesaver. You also want to cook multiple meals for the first few weeks. And if you have additional refrigeration and freezer space, cook for multiple weeks, right? You want to utilize family and friends for this if you can. Don't feel like you have to do this all by yourself, you and your partner. Turn into like a baby prep party. People love that stuff. Number 8, you want to practice self-care. Journaling. I found it helpful to journal through my pregnancy and postpartum. It helped record some of the things that I was feeling, symptoms, things of that nature. And it's, I'm sure, going to be nice to reflect on maybe 20 years from now, right? And so it also allowed me to get my feelings out, whatever I was feeling. And so I found that really helpful. Going back to laughing a lot, again, social media was really, really helpful. Find humor in the most challenging parts of your of life. Can be beneficial. Number 9, the 9th month is really, really tough in your 3rd trimester. Of course, this applies to people if you reach the last month of pregnancy. Like if you give birth a little earlier, then this may not be a case, or it may be, right? Your body is so uncomfortable, like nothing helps. So 1st trimester, part of the 2nd trimester, I had my body pillow. I'd be sleeping on it. It was so comfortable. Like that was the thing that helped so much. Yeah, that 9th month, y'all, I couldn't stand the body pillow. I was like, this is doing nothing for me. I can't get comfortable. Doesn't matter what position I have. I don't care what the temperature in the room is. I just couldn't get it right. And for me, I was pregnant during the hottest summer to date. And so it was unbearable at times. So definitely want to make sure you have an AC. I normally don't have an AC, but when I was pregnant, I made sure I had an AC because it was no joke. And you want to be safe, you and baby. Okay, number 10. Last but not least, probably the most important thing on this list is to be kind to yourself. Your body was made for this. And so whatever support your body needs, you will get it. We're lucky to live in an age where there's technology that has worked wonders for people. Don't be shy about asking for help, whether it's your partner, your friends, your family, a coworker. People you'd be surprised will help, right? And so really lean on the people that you love for the support during this time, especially as a new mother. You don't know what you don't know, And just know one thing you can be assured of is you are not alone. Mothers have been through this before. And so there are people who can really help guide you and shepherd you through the process. So I hope you find this episode helpful. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. So thanks, guys, for stopping by. My name is Nikki, and this is the Aziza Experience.